Good evening, guys. Welcome to day 6 of this book, Change Your Question, Change Your Life. We discussed the choice map in detail yesterday, and we will be going more in detail as per what is written in the book. Most of the time, we are shifting back and forth between our learner and judger mindsets, barely aware we have any control over which one we've chosen. But we do have a choice in every moment. A real choice begins when we can be mindful enough to observe our own thoughts and feelings and the language we use to express them. This is the key to success, the observer self. It is as simple as asking ourselves, where am I right now? What's present? Am I in the judger or learner? After all, if we can't observe our own thinking, how can we manage it? And if we can't manage our own thinking, how can we truly manage anything else? Very powerful line. I'll repeat it again. Please be careful. Please be attentive. After all, if we can't observe our own thinking, how can we manage it? And if we can't manage our own thinking, how can we truly manage anything else? How about if we put it to the test right now? We've got a tailor-made issue to work with too. Are you willing to look at what just happened when you asked if I thought you were a loser and a judger? I nodded uneasily. Place yourself at the crossroads, Joseph said, flashing his laser point around the figure standing between the learner and judger paths. Something just happened to that guy. Notice the words thoughts, feelings, circumstances near his head. Those words represent anything that impacts us at any moment. Some of the things that happen in life will be unpleasant. You get an unexpected bill or a phone call with terrible news. Maybe your spouse announces that a truck just backed into your new car in the parking lot. Those kind of things can be extremely upsetting. The whole world begins to look like that mud pit at the end of the map. Stuff like that happens all the time. Wouldn't you agree? I rolled my eyes and thought, he doesn't know the half of it. But positive events impact us too, Joseph continued. You click on the TV and the reporter announces that your favorite team had an unexpected win, your boss surprises you with a fabulous job offer, or maybe your spouse sends flowers with an invitation to spend a romantic evening together. You can never tell what life will throw at you. I could stand more of the good stuff, I said, but what's the point here? It comes down to this, Joseph said. Things happen to us all the time. You don't have much choice about that. But where we do have choice is in what we do with what happens. Good things, bad things, they are going to happen to you. You have no control over what is coming from the outside. It's totally and completely the unexpected. Anything can happen. Anything and everything can happen from the outside. But उस सिचुएशन, उस सर्कमस्टांस, उस इवेंट, उस रिलेशनशिप में जब कुछ भी अनएक्सपेक्टेड आ रहा है, you might label it at, you might feel good, it might feel bad, but the meaning I am giving to it, that is my choice. It is a choice I make if I am giving it a meaning with a judgment that उसने ऐसे ऐसे इसलिए किया होगा. So anything can happen and things will happen and they will happen all the time. You cannot make a choice of letting the things not happen. You cannot pause your life. Even if you shut yourself up in a room where you do not have access to external things, an earthquake can happen. But the only choice you have in this particular situation or any situation, circumstance, or event, or a relationship is what we do with what is happening. Because now the ball is in my court. उस इवेंट सर्कमस्टेंस सिचुएशन को जो आउटसाइड से आ रहा है वो आएगा. यू कैन नॉट स्टॉप इट. But what meaning am I giving to that situation? That is the choice I have. And if you feel that you are unable to make that choice, that is again your choice. And if you feel you're unable to choose how to react, again, no choice is also your choice. So how you are behaving in terms of a reaction or a response to anything and everything that is coming from the outside is your choice. Because what we do with whatever happens on the outside is our and only our choice. Irrespective of what we are thinking, irrespective of what happened in the past, irrespective of how we are trying to negotiate things, irrespective of whatever is it that we are trying to do. That is nothing but a story part of making or justifying that choice. And still, with the story of justification, you are making that choice. So whatever happens is not in your control. But what you do about it is always and always in your control, because that is your choice. You want to behave like a victim, your choice. You want to stand still, your choice. You want to react, your choice. You want to respond, your choice. Always and always, whatever you do with what happens is your choice, irrespective of whatever justification you want to give. That's just the story part of it. I like that. I said, thinking he should have had that statement on the back of his business card instead of that big question mark. Case in point, Joseph continued. Let's examine the exact moment when I first showed you the choice map. Something happened that put you on the judger path. What you do think happened? I don't know. I said, I just started. Something hit me and off I went. What kind of questions did you ask yourself when you looked at the choice map? Damn, he's hit the target dead center. I flushed, suddenly remembering my questions. Does he think I'm a judger? Does he think I'm a loser? Does he think I'm sinking in the mud? Does he think I'm hopeless? When I looked at that map, my gut had knotted up and all these loser questions flooded my brain. Yeah, I admitted, I said I screwed up. Whoa, Joseph exclaimed, holding up his hand. There's no good or bad, no right or wrong here. There is just what happens and what you do with what happens. In those first instances, you actually made a choice to bombard yourself with negative self questions. Like, I am hopeless, I said, trying to crack a feeble smile. Right. And that's a good example of the kind of negative self questions or self cues, as I like to call them, that send us right into the judge's pit. So, how do I get out? I asked. You observe and then choose. Choose, I said incredulously. That's the judger way and the learner way. The secret of being really effective and satisfied in our life begins with our ability to distinguish between the two. So that's where choice comes in. I said half question. Yes, that is the essence of question thinking, Joseph said. Change your questions, change your thinking. If you change your thinking, you can change almost anything else. You step into your observer self and become neutral and open minded. If only for a second you become an observer watching a movie of your life, you learn to simply notice whatever moods, thoughts, and behaviors are going on and going on without adding any layers of interpretation or judgment. This sets the state for change. It's very difficult from being so immersed in the situation that you can't imagine that there could be any other possibility than the way it is. With engineering problems, I said, I'm always using something like this observer self to cross check on my own figures and conclusions and confirm that I'm applying the right data. What you're saying, the choice map gives me a way of cross checking myself, as you say, observing whatever moods and thoughts might be shaping the choices I am making so I can make a course correction. Exactly. Have you ever had the experience of catching yourself calling somebody by the wrong name? Of course, it's your observer self that catches the error, Joseph explained. So you're talking about a natural capacity, something that everybody already has. And the choice map is a tool for increasing that capacity. So when we are talking about viewing the situation, circumstance, or event from an observer mode. Now, observer mode is a very clear-cut criteria of a witness self. It's like whatever is happening, you are not attached to it. And you are an outsider who is actually seeing everything as an observer is watching a movie in front of you. And the best part, it's your own life's movie. It is only when we get into that witness self, the observer mode, that we are able to detach from the character of who we are at that time. And that very clearly means dropping all the judgments, all the storytellings, every interpretations that we have added as part of topping on the cake, and just observing. That is where you will be able to actually check कि क्या हो रहा है और ये क्यों हो रहा है. Because till the time you do not detach yourself from the situation, you will only and only be part of your labeling, judgment, and the story. You will never be able to be out of the story. in order to be out of the story, you need to detach yourself and be in that observer mode. That is only when you will be able to check where is it that I need to change, and what is the question I need to ask myself in order to change this situation from where I am right now. And that is very nicely done if we are in that observer mode. And we do it a lot of times, where whenever we are saying something and suddenly realize what we said was a mistake, and we correct ourselves, irrespective of the fact that कि हमसे गलती हो गई है. That's the observer mode. But if I'm in that flow and I do not realize कि मेरे से गलती हो गई है, then I am just going with the flow. I am not the observer. Joseph nodded empathetically. That same observer capacity gives us the chance to focus on the bigger picture. Without that, you are on automatic pilot and reacting mindlessly. The choice map is about developing ways to make intentional, conscious choices rather than reacting and allowing ourselves to be controlled by events around us. These intentional and conscious choices, moment by moment by moment, are essential leadership qualities. Are you with me? I think so, I said. A minute ago, when you found yourself in the judger pit, you weren't exactly in observer mode, were you? Joseph was right. If I had been a neutral observer, I wouldn't have reacted as strongly as I did. He had said nothing to even remotely imply I was a judger or a loser. The judgmental opinion had come from only one person, me. I had forgotten in the judger pit. I had gotten in the judger pit all by myself. From the look on your face, Joseph said, you just recognize your own judger, maybe for the first time. Bravo. You'll understand why I congratulated you later. First, I want you to tell a story about something that happened to me just last month. I was in a coaching session with the superintendent of a large construction company, Joseph began. I spent 20 long minutes listening to him complain and put down everyone he worked with. According to him, the world is filled with idiots. I was getting pretty fed up with all his judgmental chatter. I felt like kicking him out of my office. Do you get the picture? You were both speeding down the judge's path. I was glad to hear I wasn't the only one who goes judging. Exactly, Joseph admitted. The questions running through my mind were, what did I do to deserve this guy? What does he think he is? A gift to mankind? These are both judger questions. Right. When I realized what I was doing, I almost laughed out loud. Here I was judging this man for judging other people. I was in a judger mode as much as he was. Joseph obviously enjoyed telling this story on himself, but working with the choice map, you get pretty good at catching yourself in the judger. First, you just notice that something's not quite right. First, you just notice that something's not quite right. Maybe you feel tense or upset or just plain lost. That gives you the clue you need to ask yourself, am I in judger? If the answer is yes, then you ask, is this where I want to be? I know that if I stayed in judger, I really couldn't help this guy, and that's what my job was. No one can help anyone else from a judge's place. I repeat, no one can help anyone else from a judge's place. Seems like a good time to cut your losses and back out of it. So why is it that when we are in that judge's place, we are not able to help anyone, and not just us, anyone who is in that place or who is in that judge mindset does not have the capacity to help others, or is it actually not possible to help others? If my whole issue at that place when I am behaving like a judge or I am on that judge mindset is to find a fault in the other person, is to just play the blame game, just be attached to that box of excuses and justification for whatever is happening, I cannot help others because it's me who first needs to be helped. And it's me who has to first help myself first to get to a platform where I will be able to know what is it that I have to learn, and to be in that learner mindset to know as to what is it that I can do to help others as well. But being in that position of that judger or a judger having, operating from a judge's mindset, I'm just playing the blame game. He did this, he did that. इसने ऐसे नहीं किया, इसने ऐसे नहीं किया. ऐसे हो गया, ये हो गया, वो हो गया. That's it. You're just passing judgments, just finding faults. Whereas the flip side of a judge's mindset is, okay, this happened. What is it that we can do right now? What's the solution possible? What options possible? How can we get to it, to a win-win situation for both parties involved? Then only we are able to help others. Being in a judge's place, it's we who need the maximum help. It's we who need the maximum help when we are in that place of a judge, operating from a judge's mindset. That's one of the major reasons that we will not be able to help others. In order to help others, we need to first help ourselves shift from a judger mindset to a learner mindset in order to help us first and then help others. Not at all, Joseph replied. That's where the observer self can be so valuable, allowing you to recognize when we are in the judger and literally switch our thinking from judger to learner. There is a specific kind of question that helps us do that. And appropriately, I call it a switching question. The one that worked for me that day was, how else can I think about him? That switching question gave me the freedom to wonder, what does he need? Instead of labeling him and writing him off, that learner question helped me be curious about him. The choice map simplifies this whole process for observing yourself, discovering more options, and choosing more wisely, even under pressure. I gave this some serious thought. It seems like lots of people go into judger whenever there's any kind of conflict. I said, I mean, both people are probably in judger at the same time, right? That's pretty normal, isn't it? I was thinking about that awful moment with Grace at the airport. It is normal for judger to reign when people are in conflict. Joseph said, when both people are in the judger, everything comes to a screeching halt. But here's a $1,000,000 tip for you. When two people are in judger, the one who wakes up first has an advantage. That person can choose to go learner and turn the situation around for both of them. Something clicked for me. I noticed after some disagreements with Grace that she would switch from stubbornness to open mindedness, often very quickly. Her ability to switch always lightened things up between us. I had often wondered if she did this naturally or if she had some inner trick. She once told me that she did was remember the big picture. Our relationship was more important than proving she was right. I noticed that when Grace switched like that, I often got calmer too. If Joseph Techniques could teach me how to do this on purpose, I'd be way ahead of the game with Charles, my nemesis at work. I was starting to fidget. Look, I said, what's the bottom line? There's really just one lesson here. With the questions we ask ourselves, consciously or not, we literally put ourselves either in learner or judge mode. And we are most effective at virtually everything we do when we are in learner. But don't worry if you take the judger path every once in a while. Being human, we always will from time to time. The real issue is whether we'll dig in our heels and stay there. That's what really causes problems. When your observer self becomes stronger and more dependable, you will find it much easier to switch your questions and get back into learner. That's where things open up again and you can effectively go towards the results you are looking for. You make it sound so easy, I said, thinking about the awful results that had landed me in Joseph's office. Ah, but it's easier than you think, Joseph said. The signals for catching yourself in Judger are obvious. Once you know how to spot them, your body and your moods will tell you. Remember what happened to me with my superintendent? I wasn't getting any place with him until I stepped into my observer self and recognized that my own mood was getting in the way. Later, he and I talked about moods and attitudes, and we associate with judger self righteousness, arrogance, superiority, and defensiveness. He did up the list. Add to that the habit of putting others down or putting ourselves down, and you've got a prescription for a real mess. The questions we ask ourselves, whether conscious or not, can either be our worst enemies or our greatest friends. I have discovered that any time I get into negative moods, judger questions and attitudes are involved. Realizing that I can change my questions and turn things around, sometimes very quickly from a very different result. So you are saying my body tells me what my mind is doing. It even indicates the kind of questions I'm asking myself. In fact, yes, Joseph said. You are a researcher. Let's do an experiment. I'm going to recite two different set of questions. All you need to do is notice how each set of questions impact you. Pay attention to your muscles, your posture, your breathing, and what you're feeling in different areas of your body. He got up, walked over to the choice map, and stood in front of the judge pit. Ask yourself these questions. Whose fault is it? What's wrong with me? Why am I such a failure? Why is everybody so stupid and frustrating? Haven't we already been there, done that? Why bother? As he recited these questions, the chest tightened up, my shoulders stiffened. I was clutching up like a rookie pitcher in the last minutes of an important game. I laughed uncomfortably. I think I see what you mean. I definitely feel some tension here and there. I thought, you might. Almost everyone I've done this experiment with has some kind of reaction. What are some words you'd use to describe how these questions made you feel? I shrugged, just slightly uncomfortable, I guess. How about something a little more specific? I could see that Joseph wasn't going to let me off the hook. He was really pushing me. I decided to be honest with him, though I wasn't easy admitting even to myself what I was feeling. Well, I began. I feel like that guy in the judge's pit, stuck, bogged down. I was stumbling around with this. I wasn't used to putting words to my feelings. I knew this isn't easy. Joseph said, people in my workshops come up with a variety of words: hopeless and helpless, pessimistic, negative, depleted, depressed, uptight, victim, loser. Now, here is the good part. Now we talk about learners and judges' question. This is where I want everybody to be highly attentive. Now, the judger says, what's wrong? But the learner says, what works? The judge says, whose fault is it? The learner says, what am I responsible for? The judge says, what's wrong with me? The learner says, what do I want? The judge says, how can I prove I am right? Whereas the learner says, what can I learn? The judge says, how will this be a problem? The learner says, what are the facts? What's useful about this? The judge says, why is that person so stupid and frustrating? The learner says, what is the other person thinking, feeling, and wanting? The judge says, how can I be in control? But the learner says, what's the big picture? The judge says, why bother? But the learner says, what's possible? We all ask both kind of questions, and we have the power to choose which ones to ask in any moment. Joseph was right on. Every one of those words struck a chord with me. As you learn to pick up on those body clues and observe your moods and thoughts, Joseph said, catching yourself in Jaja will get quickly and easier. Here, let's try something. Experiment with giving yourself 60 seconds to just observe what's going on with you right now. Are you game? So let's do this exercise as part of today's work. So wherever everybody is, if possible, have your cameras on. If not, just do this exercise. Let out a breath Imagine yourself as an observer and just pretend as if you were watching yourself sitting there in Joseph's office. Probably you are a replica of Ben. And notice your feelings beginning to shift. The changes were subtle at first. It's like you were saying, I told him, I am moving away from those negative feelings. Good. Can be back. It's not exactly what I thought it was. So just continue with the reading now. Joseph says, I told him I'm moving away from those negative feelings. Good. Later on, I'll give you more tools for doing that, Joseph said. Once your observer skills are stronger, you will be able to zero in on what kind of questions are getting you stuck. And then you will be able to craft new questions to carry you right into learner territory. This way, you can have your questions rather than your questions having you. All right, that's enough of Jaja for now. Would you like to experience a different set of questions? I nodded emphatically. Then let's check out the learner path, Joseph said as he moved to a different part on the choice map. I think he asked me to breathe normally and center myself for a few seconds before going on. Okay, good. Joseph said, imagine that you're asking yourself these questions. What happened? What do I want? What's useful about this? What's the other person thinking, feeling, and wanting? What else can I learn? What are my choices? What's best to do now? What's possible? Almost immediately, I experienced a quiet excitement. My breathing got easier. I began feeling a willingness and openness I certainly hadn't felt with the first set of questions. One thing was particularly noticeable. My shoulders relaxed. I hadn't felt this good in a while. How's that? Joseph asked, smiling. What a difference. I like it. What are some words you'd use to describe the second experience? Open, I said, lighter, upbeat, curious, more energy, optimistic, a little hopeful. Maybe there are solutions to my problems after all. Good, good, Joseph reiterated. These feelings signal that you've taken yourself into a learner mindset. At that moment, I heaved a great sigh of relief. I might not have totally understood or even agreed with what Joseph was saying, but for the first time in a while, I was feeling a little hopeful. Maybe this guy actually did have some tools that could make a difference for me, as nutty as it might seem. So, working with tool number 2, purpose to provide a visual summary and guide for understanding our learner or judger mindsets and questions and the future that these create. Now, there is a discussion. Throughout Ben's story, the choice map helps him become aware of the kind of questions he's asking, learner or judger, and consider how he might change his questions for the best results. Here are 4 ways to work with the choice map. Practice number 1. Imagine that you are the figure standing at the crossroads of the choice map. Some thought, feeling, or circumstance has just occurred. It might be related to your business, career, or personal life. Experiment by taking each path separately. That is, asking yourself both judger and learner questions about this situation and carefully considering the results each might produce. If you land in judger, consider what switch question might allow you to step into the switching lane and return to learner territory. Looking at the choice map, you can simply ask, where am I right now? Am I in judger? Where do I want to be? What is my ultimate goal in this situation? Practice number 2. You can use this choice map to learn from a past situation that didn't work out as you would have liked. It can help you discover if a judger hijacking might have blocked your success. If so, what lessons can you learn from this? How would you handle the same situation now using your learner mindset? And practice number 3, you can also use the choice map to learn from a situation that did work. What learner questions made the difference? How did those questions help you avoid the judger pit? If any judger was present, what switching questions did you use to move on to learner's path? What lessons can you draw from these observations that you might want to reinforce and benefit from again in the future? And practice number 4, share the choice map with others at work and at home, and you'll gain at least as much as you give. There is an old medical school saying, see one, do one, teach one, and it's yours. You could, for example, share it with the team, project group, or coachee. Many readers also share the choice map with family members and friends. This is an ideal way to reinforce learner relationships and results with people anywhere in your life. Make sure you are in learner when you share the choice map with others. And always remember, see one, do one, teach one, and it's yours for lifetime.